was about 900, something in that area. And it seemed very neighborly, you know, and everybody belonged like to the Kiwanis, or I don't know what other clubs there were. And it was just a pretty neat deal.
Did you belong to any specific church in Thornton?
Yeah,
Okay.
Holy Cross. I think they started, I don't remember what year they started either. And so we used to go, when we first moved to here, we used to go to Cathedral downtown. That was the closest I felt. And in fact, that's where my second daughter was baptized at Cathedral in Denver.
Okay.
No, it wasn't a cathedral then. And so everything was, there were no grocery stores. They had that little market there over in the D&B Center. And they had a meat store too, so that's where you got things. But we did most of our shopping over at Chaffee Park. And then other things we got at the rodeo market over in Westminster. When Westminster was a one-horse town, it was smaller than Thornton. And it was kind of neat, but you know, it was just that you didn't, like you could run up to D&B and get, I remember my mother walking to get cigarettes. And I was like, God, you really need a cigarette, you're going to walk up to the store. And there weren't that many shops. Miller's didn't come right away either. That came later. I don't know what age that, or year that came. And so we were kind of barren of stores, and then there was, I know I have on here Bone Breaks, and then we had I think it was Howell's store.
It was a
They
house.
were good. I don't know, is that on here? Yes, it is. And I liked them. They had better quality clothes in there. And then there was the Woolworths. And then we belonged to this bowling league, because we had a bowling alley up there, and they took that away in some juvenile thing now. And that was fun. So you make friends by going bowling. So we did that, you know, once a week too. That was fun.
Now your last name is spelled G-O-O-G-I-N-S, and your ex-husband's name is Tom.
Tom.
Okay. Now you, Evelyn, and Tom both signed the original incorporation document. It was a petition to incorporate back in '55, and there were 2 votes that they held. The first time that people got together to vote to see whether or not Thornton should incorporate, it was a no. And then there was a second vote. What was the atmosphere like prior to Thornton incorporating? Were there a lot of people who were just adamant that it was something that needed to be done?
I think most people are afraid of something new. We figured we were a community by ourselves, and that was fine. And so a lot of people, they're afraid of new things. And like my ex-husband, he believed, you know, this is what we should do. Thornton should become a city of its own. And that eventually happened.
Okay.
He was very active in politics, too.
Now you moved to Thornton. You're part of the original Hoffman Homes subdivision. And when you moved here, how many people would you say were living in Thornton at the time? That was in 1954 that you moved here? Okay.
Like I said, I figured about 900. I thought,
Okay.
oh, that was kind of nice, you know. There wasn't a lot of people, no traffic. And the Lindblads next door, they lost a son on Russell Way. He was hit by a car. So because I didn't know that, because nobody knew anybody at first, you know. And we were so poor. You barely could make the monthly payments, you know.
That was $67 back then, 57, something like that?
Can you imagine that? And even $67 seemed like a lot then. Now you look at the rents I hear my kids, I say, how can you do it? So it was a good deal. These homes were really, it gave everybody an opportunity to have a home. Because similar homes back in New Jersey were going for $18,000, $20,000, and $30,000. I thought, no way could we do that.
Wow.
It was so high.
Yeah. Now, was Tom a veteran? He served in World War II, and so he was able to get a loan through the GI program, GI Bill. Okay.
That's how we got the loan.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of your neighbors then were probably also veterans or people who were from another state moved here, possibly for a new start.
I really don't know that much. Isn't that funny? I really don't know my neighbors that well. I'm not that neighborly anyway. The people next door, the Lindblads, I assume she came from California, and he did too. And so, like I say, we were so poor, you know. And then we had those people across the street. Their name went by me too. They had all those kids, and the kids would run around naked and everything else. Never had a cold, nothing. Our kids are hacking away. And we said, how did those kids do it?
So how many children did you have?
I have 5.
You have 5 children. And their names are?
Diane is the oldest. She lives up in Bailey now. And Tom, he lives off Washington on 99th. He bought a home up there. And then there's Eric, who lives with me now. He never married. And there's Jackie. She lives over in Westminster on 100th. And Laura, she just got married this past April. She lives in Denver.
Okay, and they all went to the very first school here in Thornton, which was
Bertha
High. Okay, and that was where
still down there.
Right, and Mayor Carpenter, our current Mayor Carpenter, was at one time a teacher there. Now, in the neighborhood, what were the roads like? They didn't have them paved, I'm presuming, at first.
We didn't have street lights.
Okay.
Well, we had paved streets.
Okay.
No driveways.
All right.
And the streets were paved. And we probably had sidewalks too. And it's hard to remember all these things too. And Bertha High was nice because kids just went down the street to school. And then they went, after Bertha High, they went to Clayton, and then on to York Street School, and then on to Highland, which now has a different name. In fact, my oldest daughter, she had to graduate from Mapleton because Highland was just a 2-year school. Then when her brother came along, Highland was a 4-year school. So
the schools responded to the growth of the community. We had been talking early on about the police force. What do you remember about that?
It was a very small police force, and they were kind of a volunteer group, I think. I don't know. And you knew them by name, because at one time, I don't know whether he was the chief at that time, and I can't recall his name, knocked on the door and said, "Where's your car?" I said, "Parked in front." He said, "No, it isn't." So I looked out, my car was down there by Lillian Lane, and somebody had tried to steal it.
So it was a big event for you.
Sitting in your house, somebody stealing your car.
Okay.
We haven't had, my daughter came home from school, I think that was Laura. She parked her bike out there, and we watched him, just ran off with the bike, and I said, "God, you can't even leave a bike out."
So was the crime, what was the crime like in the early days in Thornton?
I don't remember any particular crime deal. I really don't. It probably was, but I don't remember it.
Okay. How about fire protection? Because I'm sure that was an issue in the early years as Thornton, after incorporation.
The fire department is up there by the senior center, which at one time the senior center was the library. Because now the library is where North Valley Bank used to be. And I stopped going to North Valley Bank because my son who lives with me, his first name is Eric, and so it goes on to E. Gooain, and I would deposit money, and they put his deposit in my account. So I said, this is it. They can't keep track of two different people. So he went to Norwest Bank, and I went to, well, Bank Western, because now it's it's Central Bank now.
Did you go to any beauty salons when you were here? Barber shops?
I went to Denver because I
To
worked,
Denver.
and I wrote to Denver.
What did you do? What was your occupation?
Oh, I worked at that time when we first moved up here at Blue Cross and Blue Shield.
Hmm.
And then later on I worked for City and County of Denver.
Okay.
And that's where I'm retired from now.
Mm-hmm. Is there any one event that sticks in your mind that you can recall about Thornton? Anything that you thought was funny or that was upsetting to you?
Well, when we moved up here, everybody would say, God, you live up in Wyoming. I thought it was so far.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, because traveling to the roads have changed.
Mm-hmm.
You come home York Street, or you come home Washington, and the Valley Highway was not like it is now.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there wasn't even a turnoff for Thornton. You got off at, I think, 72nd, and you drove up from 72nd. And then when you went up York, that terrible hill was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible, because when it snowed, there you'd be stranded. Because my mother lived with us then, and so she watched my kids, so I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to worry about that. But the road conditions were bad.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine. Well, it's really strange, is because really the community was here before Thornton was officially a city. I mean, the housing subdivision that you live in today was here in 1954, and we didn't incorporate officially until May of 1956, and so there was a couple of years there
Mm-hmm.
where, and I'm sure that was part of the motivation to incorporate.
Because we figured we'd have better roads and different
Mhm.
facilities,
Mm-hmm.
and a proper police force and a fire group, whatever you call them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fire department is still up there on, I think it's Dorothy.
Mm-hmm.
It's right next to the senior center.
Okay. Do you remember any of the early people who were involved in the incorporation, like Mayor Oyer Leary? Any
yeah.
thoughts, any memories you can share?
Yeah, I remember O'Leary. Was he our first mayor?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He would belong to the Kiwanis too.
Right.
And Tom Carello.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
See how good I am, I can't even remember names.
Well, you've come up with the names of two of our former mayors. So, yeah, I understand they used to hold city council meetings in the basement of Tom Carrillo's home.
Yeah.
And his home is part of this subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was at 9301 Hoffman.
Yeah.
And the police chief, Oscar Hill, first police chief, lives in this neighborhood too. So a lot of the early residents are still here.
Yeah, and it's really amazing because Fergus across the street, Lindblad's moved away about more than 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was two doors down. Their daughter is living in their house.
Okay.
Why can't I remember their name? And then there's the Andersons down the street, and the Shoemakers are down the street too. And that one gal too. I can't remember her name either.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Mr. Berger, William Berger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's good. Your husband was active in the Kiwanis Club. How about the JCs? Anything you can recall?
No, I don't know anything about the JCs. He was mostly involved in the Kiwanis Club.
And you were not a member of the Thornton Women's Club?
No, I belonged to the women's Kiwanis for a while.
So what did the women's arm of the Kiwanis do? What were the things that you did as a Kiwanis member?
I don't really remember.
Okay.
We must have done a great deal.
Okay. And What about some of the other, like some of the businesses you mentioned that, you had one car, I'm presuming, or did you have one car? What kind of make and model was it? Was it purchased locally?
First car. We first came out here, we had a Hudson, I think it was 51 Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
And we bought it new, and then because of the money problems, we lost the car. It was repossessed.
Mm-hmm.
And then we bought, what car did we have after that? Oh, God. I should remember that, but I can't. My ex-husband could tell you. I could give you his number, too, if you want to contact him.
I'd like to. You mentioned that there were a lot of gas stations. Back then, they're no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these corner
I
gas one-stop shops.
Yeah, no, we didn't have those. Zane Gibbons had one right there on Washington, right off Russell, and then by 88th there was another station. We had a Gulf station, and we had a Conoco station, and trying to think of what other one we had. God, my memory fails me. But it seemed like there were gas stations on every corner.
Okay. One of the things, I went over and toured the Mountain View Lutheran Church last week, and I talked to Pastor Loving. He told me an interesting story. Now, the Mountain View Lutheran was officially the very first church in Thornton prior to Holy Cross. And he mentioned that some of the early residents, and primarily in the older neighborhood, he remembered hearing stories, although he's not the original pastor, that he said the community was very transient, that people would move in, and he said almost like at midnight, sometimes people would move out. Do you remember any thoughts and memories about that?
We've had houses like that, because that house that I talked about with all the kids, well, there for a while, I think that was a house of prostitution, because they had a little red light and things. It was just funny because everybody laughed and
Where
said,
was
God,
this?
you know.
Where was it? In this neighborhood?
Right across the street. I think, right, they're not original. I think their name is Schmidt, but that to us was funny, you know. And the house on the corner, very, very funny people lived there. The original people were Patty and John, I can't remember their last name, and then people come in and then they move, and you never knew who was going to be there. The two houses on both these corners were just transient people, you know. And we had they were hilarious because they were drunks, you know. And they came home one night. It was funny to watch him. He was trying to carry her up that hill, and he dropped her, and I thought it was just hysterical, you know. But we did have that transient thing, too.
Yeah, it was mainly, I think Pastor Loving had mentioned that it was because, I mean, what you said, the $67 a month, it doesn't sound like a lot of money to us today, but back then it was a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. And we were poor. I know the Burgers belonged to Mountain View, and so did the Lindlads. And most of the people, because there were, God, I get the name runs through my mind and I lose it. And
That's okay.
I remember their first name, I can't remember the last.
What about parades and festivals in the early days? Was there a lot of celebration?
Yeah, you had your Thornton. Was it Thornton Festival then? I don't know. Yeah, they had. I never participated in any of that. And these neighbors, Lindblad, they still go to North Valley Bank. They still come up here to the bingo and stuff they have up here. And why did you move away? If you come back here, you know, and they bank at the same bank. And they said people still, even like the two doors down, their kid has the house now because both of those people are dead. I think her name was Lee. No, her name was Lee. He was the town drunk.
Okay. What about today in Thornton? We started out with the interview, and you were talking about that you miss the old Thornton and the personality of the community.
The smallness of it.
Right.
It was more like a community of
Mhm.
people, and now we're out there, and it's like living with people in North Glen or something.
Mhm.
There's always been a rivalry between Thornton and North Glen.
Right. It heated up in the 70s with the
Yeah.
water and land annexation issues.
It
right?
still hasn't resolved itself, you know. And I used to ride the bus because we had a bus service, this old dilapidated bus that I took to work every once in a while. That was
Mhm.
funny. And then one time it was just a small town bus, and I'd buy groceries down there on at the city line there. It was a grocery store. And I put the groceries on the bus, and my husband would read it and take the groceries home, and I'd do some more shopping. Because our vehicles were kind of old, really,
Mhm.
you know. Yeah, we were a poor community at that
Mhm.
time.
But a close community.
Yes.
And so you feel that as we approach a new century, that Thornton is at risk of losing a sense of community with the
I
growth?
think so. But it's funny, like my son still lives in Thornton,
Mm-hmm.
and the others have moved, but it just seems people are still, their roots are here.
Mm-hmm.
Went to school here, they went to church here, so their roots are here.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to describe Thornton, you would describe it as what you remember the most about Thornton, as a place where people came together. And is there anything more you would want to add, for people down in years to come, what you would like them to think of Thornton?
I think when you're a small community, you're always closer because you know everybody. And now you don't know everybody. So I don't know what to say about that, but it's just that Thornton has grown so much. It's just like nobody's in touch.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have these bigger homes. And of course, Thornton went in revolt when they started to build those Bonnie Bray homes, because we had brick homes, and they thought this is going to be the downfall of Thornton.
These were the asbestos siding homes, right? The frame homes,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm.
And so everybody in the brick home said, you're taking something away from Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
But they built them anyway,
Yeah. And the mobile home issue in the 60s, when they finally were officially here to stay.
Oh, yeah.
People didn't want the first mobile home park to come into Thornton. What do you think about the housing developments that you see in Thornton today, the really big,
I don't
new...
feel it's not like the old Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
You people have money. I remember when we moved up here, we didn't have money.
Mm-hmm.
We had kids and no money. So it was kind of difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Even the small monthly payments on the mortgage, $67, that sometimes was hard to do too.
Mm-hmm.
And you look back now and think, God, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out a name. Let me see if you remember her. The name Norma Ellman. She was a teacher, and I'm not sure at what school. Her husband, I believe his name was Leo Ellman, was a music teacher. We have a city key. Does that ring a bell? Presentation of a city key to a Norma Ellman. We think she was on the $64,000 question and was presented with the city key, and you don't remember reading or hearing anything about that? Okay. We're trying to find Mrs. Ellman. We're not sure if that's still her name. But supposedly she won $64,000, which was a lot of money back then.
Oh, yeah.
And we have been able to find the City of Thornton key, and we're hoping to feature that in the exhibit, in addition to a lot of other items. Once again, I think what you said is very relevant about Thornton, the closeness of a small community and how that is lost. and the
Yeah.
involvement that you could get from a
Because when
smaller
you're
group.
starting out and you don't have any money, but you have kids, you
Mhm.
it was difficult.
Mhm.
The good old days, I guess you call them.
Yeah, it's funny thinking 40 years ago would be what we call good old days. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem that long ago to me, although, that was about when I was born. I was born in 1957.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jackie was born in 56.
Mm-hmm. When did you start seeing the most change take place in Thornton in terms of possibly growth, development, businesses coming in? When would you
Then
say?
we got the North Valley Mall, which now is the Death Valley Mall. And then they got the Northland Mall, which
Right.
now is just about the same as
Mhm.
North Valley. And everything moved over to Westminster.
So you're thinking possibly the late 60s and early 70s as being, an era of growth and opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay. What did people do as a pastime? What did you do? Did you have hobbies when you weren't working, when you weren't taking care of your kids? Was there anything you liked to do in Thornton? Did you get together with friends or?
We had the bowling alley.
Okay.
And then we had the meetings and the parties too, because at the holidays they always had parties.
Mm-hmm.
And those were neat. They'd have dinners and everything at Chancho's.
Mm-hmm. Don Chancho's, yeah.
Yeah.
Were you ever there when there was a Miss America or a Miss Colorado there?
No.
Okay, yeah. There's Sugarfoot signed a menu. Remember Sugarfoot?
Mm-mm.
No?
See, a lot of stuff I don't remember, but I'm sure if you talk to other people, they would remember it, because, like I say, I worked,
Mm-hmm.
and so you know your neighbors, and that was fine, and that was it.
How was the food at Don Chancho's restaurant?
It wasn't bad.
It was good.
In fact, when my daughter got married, we had her wedding reception at Chancho's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's been in, or Mr. C's, Don Chancho's has been here since Thornton's beginnings. It's one of the original, still existing businesses.
Yeah. Because Frank Chancho's place was there on York Street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a town, Welby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because we used to go to the church in Welby. It's
Welby.
Assumption, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
We either went to Assumption, and we went to Cathedral.
Mm-hmm. Did your kids attend a parochial school, or were they
My
part
one
of?
daughter did. She went to Holy Cross Parochial School because
Okay.
I didn't like York Street at that time, and I didn't think it was good for her to go there.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 years she went to
Mhm.
Holy Cross, and she still resents me for it. And I said, I don't care. I kept you away from an element I didn't think you needed.
Mm-hmm. The public school system. Yeah.
Because I always went to parochial school, back east.
Mm-hmm. Does the Laszlo Zani family ring a bell to you?
Are those the Hungarian?
The Hungarian
family? Yeah,
immigrants.
I
Do you remember?
them.
They
Yeah.
were adopted by Thornton in 1955, 56, and moved out here. Did you ever meet them, or do you
Yes,
remember?
I think
You did?
so. Well, especially through the Kiwanis Club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Kiwanis Club was probably the most proactive group that arranged for the adoption and brought them here and set them up with a home, and actually got half a dozen other groups like the Women's Club and to donate items. I believe the pharmacy, Thornton Pharmacy, donated a radio, and
Shame.
I believe so. I mean, that's one thing they remembered was the radio. The Women's Club provided some clothing and furnishings, and the VW bought them a wringer washer. But it really was the Kiwanis Club that made their frech start here possible.
They were very proud of that.
Was there anything else that the Kiwanis Club did to your recollection?
I don't know offhand, they always had that. They did have those shows, I don't think it was Parade of Stars.
Mm-hmm.
They had something that they had, mostly for children, I guess it was. I don't know if it was called Greatest Stars, but they put on shows and everything.
Okay.
And then, of course, with Christmas baskets and things like that, they went with that too.
Mm-hmm.
So they did a lot of things.
You remember when the current City Hall was dedicated? And you remember what the original City Hall was like? I mean, there was a Quonset hut that they originally used?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
I don't remember where it was.
Okay. Well, it's now where our shops are. Our city shops.
As if I can't remember the first City Hall.
Mm-hmm. And you think the original fire station is still on, was it Dorothy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The pool. Do you remember the community park and the pool dedication? Was the Kiwanis involved in that in any way?
I don't remember.
Okay. I know that Thornton, or there was a Thornton Recreation Association that had started up, and a lot of the young people in the community were very much involved with that, in addition to the Thornton Women's Club. There was something called a teen canteen that I've run across. Did your kids ever go to any dances, community dances?
I don't think so.
And none of your daughters were in any beauty pageants or festivals?
No.
Oh.
Too shy.
Too shy.